It only took a quarter century, but we're finally getting Streets of Rage 4. The long-overdue sequel will be punching gang members in the face sometime next year, and it's officially time to celebrate. We already covered the 1991 original back in December, so now I want to work towards completing this series by focusing on the incredible middle chapter. Turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the story and ending for Streets of Rage 2 on the Genesis. This is Game Over, the early years. When we last checked in with Adam Hunter, Alex Stone, and Blaze Fielding, they'd just beaten Mr. X and destroyed the Syndicate's stranglehold on their beloved city. 1 year has passed, and the trio has come together once again to celebrate the anniversary of their greatest achievement. This is the first time the gang has gotten back together in ages, what with most of them moving out of the city to pursue their passions. Axel is now a bodyguard, Adam rejoined the police force, and Blaze is currently teaching dance classes. They all lead very different lives now and aren't looking for trouble, but seeing as this is a sequel, trouble is about to find them. So, after a night of celebrating, Axel receives a frantic phone call from Eddie Skate Hunter, who's desperately trying to find his brother Adam. His house has been completely ransacked, and the police don't know where Adam is. So everybody's freaking out that somebody might have abducted their friend. And they're right to be concerned, because that's exactly what happened. This is only the first step of the Syndicate's evil plan to regain control of the city and return with even more power. They fired all the police, brought in military weapons, and have flooded the streets with their goons. It's time for Axel and Blaze to once again team up in order to not only save the city, but also their friend. Much like the first game, we start our adventure by hitting the gang-ridden city streets. This takes them back to the nightclub where they only celebrated 1 day earlier. Only now, the good times have been replaced by violent gang members with questionable fashion sense. It all leads to a fight out back with a dude named Barbin, which is followed by a tense walk across the dangerous bridge and then a one-on-one fight with Hakuyo in the back of a big truck. So the bridge takes us directly to a Disneyland-style theme park, complete with a fun arcade and authentic pirate ship. We then follow that up by wandering into a section of the park designed to look like it's been infested by aliens. And this is the point where I have to ask, what's going on here? Am I to believe the Syndicate's reach is so strong that they even took over a theme park? And even if they did, why spend your time cleaning it up when you could be focusing on more important targets? I mean, from a gaming perspective, I love that we're in a pirate ship and an alien planet, but this seems like a bit of a diversion if you ask me. Anyway, we finally defeat enough bad guys to exit the theme park, which leads straight into a baseball stadium. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this also kind of a pointless distraction? But that's not the case here, because as it turns out, the pitching mound is also a secret elevator. It leads to an underground fight club, which is perfect, because as it turns out, we're pretty good at kicking ass. Now, here's where things get a little confusing. After we win the tournament and everything fades out, we discover that the next stage is on a boat. Now, again, remember that we just took an elevator deep underground, so it's not entirely clear how we got from there to here. It sort of feels like there's a missing level or something that would explain all this. But instead of making the connective tissue, the developers figured that gamers wouldn't notice that we magically board a boat for some reason. Okay, so apparently the boat docks or crashes or something, because the next thing we know is that our heroes are fighting on the beach. This appears to be exactly where we needed to be, because the beach quickly turns into a heavily fortified forest. In the distance, there's some sort of large building. Is it a factory? Mr. X's not-so-secret hideout? Actually, the answer is both. We start out by working our way past an assembly line, followed by yet another ride up an elevator. Look, this is a beat-em-up released in the 1990s, so at this point they knew that only having one elevator wasn't gonna cut it. Anyway, we finally get to Mr. X's massive house/business complex. We do that thing where we fight a bunch of familiar enemies, and then it's time for yet another elevator. Between the baseball stadium, the factory, and now this luxurious lift, Streets of Rage 2 probably has the best selection of elevators of any old-school brawler. So anyway, we eventually get to Mr. X, who spends a good chunk of the fight sitting back and kinda looking bored. He eventually gets up and tries to fight with his Tommy gun, but we're not having any of that. Here's what happens next. is another one of those classic Sega endings where they alternate between a picture and then the credits. It's the kind of thing that wouldn't work in most games, but it's pretty effective here. It gives off the impression that time has passed and helps to build the anticipation for each slide. Of course, this is a happy ending, so nothing too earth-shaking happens here. The team rescues Adam and then is saved by a helicopter. It's all pretty standard stuff. But this ending does lead to one question. Was it really necessary to make Skate look like a baby in this picture? I mean, I get that he's Adam's younger brother, but he looks like he's no older than 4 or 5 here. The dude deserves better. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, The Early Years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every Monday. Now, here's the question I have for you. What Sega franchise needs to return next? We've already had a return to form for Sonic, and now we're getting Streets of Rage 4. So what else is long overdue? Man, Sega has so many great games that I could do a whole episode on that topic. But I want to stick with the proper Phantasy Star sequel. Not Phantasy Star Online, but I'm talking about an epic single-player Phantasy Star 5. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. It's worth noting that we're going to complete the Streets of Rage series in a future episode, so you should be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.